사랑해.
A near-death experience is an experience of being on the verge of death. A summary of research results shows that around 4 to 18% of people who are resuscitated from cardiac arrest face a near-death experience. Many of the people who almost died express similar testimonies. They claim to see a bright light, they claim to see a dark tunnel. They claim to meet their loved ones again. Kim Hyun-min, the man who was previously put in a suitcase by the woman in white, was seen seated at a train carrying a bouquet of flowers beside him. He sent a message to his lover that he was heading home. However, his lover felt that it was too late, and it turned out that his lover was the woman in white, Lee Ji-young. Ji-young looked sad when replying to a message from Hyun-min. It turned out that today was Ji-young's birthday, and Hyun-min wanted to meet his lover to propose to her. Because Hyun-min had brought a bouquet of flowers and a ring. Previously, Ji-young met Hyun-min's mother, and her mother asked Ji-young to break up with Hyun-min. Meanwhile, Seon-hae, the woman who was previously locked up in a haunted house, was seen looking around the apartment. And her apartment mate is Park Hae-won. She is the woman in red shoes, whose body can become very tall. Hae-won doesn't seem to like the apartment very much, whilst Seon-hae seems to like it, and the broker thinks that their relationship is mother and daughter. After school, Hyunju was picked up by her mother. Her father couldn't pick her up because he had a business trip, therefore her mother picked her up. Because it was raining heavily, her mother brought 2 umbrellas, but Hyunju didn't want to use her own umbrella. She wanted to walk close to her mother. On the way, they chatted about when they would move to the apartment because there was a house reconstruction. Hyunju was sad because she had to move to a new apartment that was not far from the school, so her mother wouldn't pick her up anymore. Hyunju really liked it when her mother picked her up from school, and her mother said she would still pick her up even though she had moved, and that made Hyunju happy. Meanwhile, Ji-woong, a student who was previously lost in a dark alley, came home from school with his friends. At school they were basketball athletes at his school, and Ji-woong carrying a basketball on the way home. Oh Sang-won, the man who cried in the elevator with Young-ji earlier, is a bus driver. It seems like the bus he is driving is having problems. He thinks the problem is with the brake pads. However, there are still passengers waiting for the last bus. He can't fix it and has to go to the next bus station, so it can be fixed there. Because if it is not fixed at the station, then he has to pay the repair costs. He has no choice but to turn on the bus engine and tell the passengers to get on. There is a grandmother who is taking her grandson on the bus, then asks the driver to look after her grandson, and the bus departs. After getting off the train, because he is in a hurry, Hyun-min feels that something is left on the train. It is a bouquet of flowers and a gift for Ji-young. It is too late to take it, and luckily, he still has the ring in his pocket. Then he sends a message to Ji-young that he is still waiting for the bus to come and to immediately follow her home. It is raining heavily, so he tells Ji-young not to wait for him outside. It seems like Ji-young has a shop like a craft, and at this time, she is giving a sign that her shop is temporarily closed. Finally, the bus comes and Hyun-min gets into the bus, while some passengers got off. At the next stop, Ji-woong also got on the bus driven by Sang-won. The driver felt something was wrong, and he gave a sign that the bus was not operating. Then Seon-hae and Hae-won walked carrying their own umbrellas. Seon-hae told Hae-won not to follow her. She was upset because Hae-won didn't like the apartment because it had many residents and the neighbors were close. Seon-hae was upset how long they would hide, and Hae-won felt they weren't like a couple. It turned out that the two of them were dating, and Hae-won felt that their relationship would be difficult because people would notice and gossip about them, and they had to keep explaining their relationship and keep making excuses. Hae-won felt that Seon-hae would have a harder time than her, but Seon-hae was angry because Hae-won always hid their relationship. She asked Haiwan not to call her name anymore and not to follow her, because she didn't want to see Haiwan again. The bus stopped and Sean-hye got on the bus by taking off her shoes. Then Haiwan took her shoes and got on the bus. Haiwan sat in the back of Seon-hye. Actually, the driver didn't want to take any more passengers, because he had to go to the bus pool immediately, but Hyunju and her mother ran to catch the bus. Because the driver couldn't bear it, someone stopped the bus and they both got into the bus. Inside the bus, Hyunju saw Seon-hye and Haiwan, who had the same shoes, and there seemed to be something strange about them. Then her mother told her daughter to stop looking at them. It seemed like Hyunju knew they were a couple who were fighting, and they enjoyed the trip on the bus. In the middle of the trip, suddenly one of the tires burst and the driver couldn't control the speed of the bus. Behind there was a truck driver, who was shocked and the collision couldn't be avoided. Hyunmin tried to catch his cell phone and Haiwan hugged Seon-hye. Mrs. Yoo-hee hugged her daughter tightly and the bus plunged into the river. And when Ji-young walked outside and was replying to a message from Hyunmin, she saw the bus plunge into the river. Ji-young immediately called Hyunmin, but there was no answer. Then she called emergency, but because she was mute, she couldn't answer the phone. And she ran and cried towards her lover's place. The victims were taken to the hospital and medical personnel were busy trying to save them. Ji-woong had a fairly serious fracture in his back, and the little boy was not seriously injured. Mrs. Yoo-hee had a cardiac arrest and Hyunju was treated next to her. And Sungwon, the driver, also had a cardiac arrest with a swollen stomach, while Haiwan and Seon-hye were taken to the operating room with their bodies hugging. And Ji-young arrived at the hospital running, but when she entered, she was confused because she was not Hyunmin's family and Hyunmin's family was also against their relationship. In the waiting room, the doctor told Sungwon, the driver's guardian, that Sungwon had died at 7 on September 11, 2018. Hearing that, his wife was very sad and she looked very weak. Ji-woong came out of the operating room and his parents took him to the ICU. Hyunju's father came, wearing a mourning suit. Has her mother died? And she saw Hyunju come out of the operating room. Then Seon-hye was also taken out of the operating room and her parents accompanied her. There was a victim who was taken out in a dead state and she was Haiwan. A policeman came and gave Hyunmin's cell phone, who was on the bus. Then Ji-young called him and her mother saw the call. Her mother cruelly sent a message to Ji-young that Hyunmin died because of Ji-young. Ji-young was devastated and cried silently. Even though Hyunmin had not died, he was still alive and they took him to the ICU. Hyunmin's father felt that his wife was too much because even though Ji-young couldn't hear, she shouldn't have said that. Ji-young must have been devastated, so contacted her and explained the truth. And when her father wanted to send a message to her, Ji-young sent a message that she would follow Hyunmin. Ji-young committed suicide and Hyunmin's family was shocked to find out. Her father sent a message that Hyunmin was still alive and Ji-young saw it with a rope tied around her neck. She tried to untie the rope, but it was too late.
모르겠어요.
After committing suicide and dying, Ji-young's body was taken to the morgue. The doctor and nurse saw the noose around her neck and felt that Ji-young must have been in great pain. They would clean and shroud her. When she passed away, Ji-young would forget all her memories. They held a 3-day funeral because the funeral tradition has been passed down since ancient times. People wait 3 days before sending off the deceased, just in case they come back to life. And it's not just the bereaved who say goodbye, those who live also need time to say goodbye. Giving 3 days is a final respect for the departed. In other words, the deceased only has 3 days left. When they were dating, Ji-young always waited for Hyunmin on a bus stop bench, and Hyunmin came by bus. After she died, Ji-young still waited in the same place. she sat alone remembering the old days of dating. When they watched movies at the cinema, they also spent time together at Ji Young's house. Because Ji Young is mute, they have a code word I love you that they had knocked on a large drum. After dying, Ji Young tried to pronounce the word and she could pronounce Kim Hyun Min, I miss you too. A bus came and Hyun Min got off the bus, but he didn't remember Ji Young and that made Ji Young sad. And while walking, Hyun Min suddenly fell. There were two men who were tasked with cleaning Ji Young's belongings in the house that Ji Young rented. They worked at night because they were worried that the building owner would lose out if news of Ji Young's suicide in the house spread. They felt that the building owner was being excessive considering that Ji Young had just died. They would clean the shop first, then the house, and before starting they would pay their respects first. When starting to clean up Ji Young's belongings, one of the men felt something strange behind the door of her house. At first he tried to ignore it, but he heard more and more strange sounds and then he invited his friend to live there. He felt that Ji Young hadn't left and was still in the house. The next night a similar incident happened again. At that time Ji Young knocked her hand with the code they had used for. Hyun Min seems to remember the knocking sound, but he ignores it and he falls back unconscious and Ji Young approaches him. In the cinema, a woman seems to hear a strange sound like a cutting sound, then she looks back. And there is a suitcase there. When she checks it again, the suitcase is gone. They leave because they are scared. In the cinema Ji Young seems to be sewing something and Hyun Min seems to wake up again. Even though they are like wandering spirits, Hyun Min, who is in a coma, does not remember Ji Young, unlike Ji Young, who remembers him well. And Ji Young is in several places to sew Hyun Min's body so he can wake up again. Hyun Min only remembers Ji Young when Ji Young has become a spirit and does not remember when she was still alive. Now Ji Young only has a little time because she only has 3 days. When the nurse wants to clean Ji Young's body, the door cannot be opened. The refrigerator works, but the door cannot be opened and the doctor feels that Ji Young have a lot of hatred, so they can only wait. Meanwhile Sang-sik, who was still in the light shop because the rain had not stopped. Even though Wan Yang was wearing sunglasses, Sang-sik knew that Wan Yang was looking at him. He felt that Wan Yang was used to watching people and that was because her job was handling customers. That was not much different from Sang-sik's job. He also knew if there was something different from someone's attitude. He could tell a little about people by looking at them, but he didn't know how old Wan Yang was and suddenly, Wan Yang said that he used to have a daughter. Then Sang-sik decided to look for the man he was looking for because the rain had stopped. Sang-sik walked here and there and then, at home, and his wife was still at home and admitted that even though she was 4 months pregnant, her stomach was not big. Sang-sik then walked and ran to the street again, and when he returned home, his wife was no longer at home. He then ran again to the street until his legs were weak and he was confused because it was like walking in the same place over and over again. Then when he sat down suddenly his eyes were strange again. When Hyunju passed by her apartment complex, suddenly there was a dog barking. She told the dog to be quiet because there was a strange man who looking for him. But the dog kept barking and Hyunju told him to go away. Finally the dog went away. Hyunju entered the elevator and suddenly there was a man who entered the elevator. Hyunju was a bit scared because there was blood on his clothes and it turned out that he is Hyun Min. Then she ran to her apartment and because she was nervous, Hyunju pressed the wrong door password. Hyun Min is curious and asks if Hyunju has ever seen him. And Hyunju answered no. Hyun Min doesn't remember since when he lived in that apartment and suddenly Hyun Min fell and Hyunju was shocked because his body bent. Then Ji Young came and asked Hyunju to leave him because he was her man and Hyunju entered her apartment. Hyunju was curious and tried to peek at them, but her mother pulled her and told her to be quiet. It turned out that Ji Yang peeked at the door and knew that the mother and Hyunju remembered each other. But why was Ji Yang different? Hyunju asked her mother to let her go. She was disappointed, because lately her mother was strange. Her mother only asked Hyunju to buy a light bulb for her, even though she couldn't go to the light shop anymore, because she was afraid. She met a lot of strange people lately, but her mother didn't listen to her and made her frustrated. Hyunju really hated her situation, because she didn't have friends. They ignored her and thought she didn't exist. She felt something was wrong with her and she didn't want to buy a light bulb anymore and didn't want to leave the house. Youngji entered the hospital parking lot and she saw a grandmother sitting with a young man. It seemed like she was the spirit who had just died, and then Youngji greeted her. The grandmother was shocked because Youngji could see her and thought Youngji was dead. Youngji was just a human who was almost dead, and then she asked the grandmother what she was doing there. It turned out that she sat there because she didn't want to hear people crying because of her. Then Youngji asked who the young man sitting next to her was. It turned out that he was her beloved grandson. The grandmother was sad because she would forget him. If she went there, she would forget everything about this place, and today was her last day. But she couldn't stop worrying about her grandson. Then Youngji took out her lunch and asked the grandmother to tell her about her grandson. While in the ICU, her friend asked Youngji for earwax because she seemed to hear something. Then Youngji gave her earwax and said maybe her friend's ears were just sensitive. It turned out that the strange sound was from Ji Young's crying. She accompanied Hyunmin, who was still in a coma, in the ICU. Then Youngji approached and explained that they had tried their best and now it depended on the patient's determination. But she didn't know where the determination came from. Maybe it wasn't just her own determination. It's still a mystery why Hyunmin can still survive. The doctor finds it difficult to explain. This patient is in a coma, so where does the determination come from? While Seon Hae was still in the rented house, then she saw the patient's clothes there. She then entered the room with the light bulb and suddenly she remembered Haiwan. She remembered when they were fighting in the rain, and she also remembered the accident. That her hands couldn't be released because the corpse was stiff after death. The person behind her saved the one in front. The memory made Seon Hae cry because she regretted just remembering it. Before the accident, she said hurtful words to Haiwan and now she was looking for Haiwan, even though Haiwan's spirit was beside her and was hugging her. When Youngji wanted to go home, she saw a boy in the waiting room. He was looking for someone in the ICU. Youngji asked who he was, because the boy shouldn't be there except for the patient's family. The boy wanted to return the ball he was holding. He hung the ball around his neck on the day of the bus accident. It seems like Youngji knows who he is and Youngji will return the ball to him. The boy gave the ball to Youngji.
Assist.
Ji Yang, Sangwon and Sangsik wandered around the street that often they passed. Sangsik felt strange because suddenly his lighter could light up, even though it never wanted to light up before. He remembered a truck that seemed to hit him, and he saw his shadow. There was a bump on his head. Sangsik then went into a light shop and asked Wanyang for coffee. And Wanyang gave it. Sangsik felt that the coffee was not hot and he didn't feel anything. He wandered around there and realized that his body was strange. Wanyang felt that many people came to his shop and didn't realize it. And Sangsik wanted to know what this shop was that had a very long night. Wanyang also asked the same thing, and when he opened his glasses, and it turned out that his eyes were like a cat's.